Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. The crypto market's down just a little bit today, nothing catastrophic here, but I'm going to highlight in this video a number of things, including the fact that pretty much all of the analysts that I follow, almost 100% of them, have been bull posting over the last day. And there's only one analyst that I follow who thinks it's more probable we're entering a bear market right now. And sometimes minority opinions are correct. They are. You're going to follow enough minority opinions, a certain percentage of them will be correct. But what I found out of the analysts that I follow is that the vast majority of the time that the group of analysts I follow thinks the same or similar thing, they are almost always correct, and they all firmly believe we are going to have a final blow-off top this market cycle, and that XRP absolutely is going to play a huge role in that. And for the first time in nearly a decade, XRP will melt faces. Yes, it's great that XRP's already been vindicated and validated this market cycle. It's got the regulatory clarity. It's already hit multiple new all-time highs over the last 12 months. But we're still waiting for that last life-changing part where it rips to the upside and melts faces. And I have all the confidence in the world that that is what's going to happen. I firmly believe, whether I'm right or wrong, we'll see. But I think my conviction is rightly placed, and it would be bizarre if we don't see this. In fact, I'd go so far as to say the only way we don't see this is if we have a black swan event that actually rips the market to shreds to such a degree that it's going to take years for it to come back. Outside of something like that, I just don't find it probable that we're entering a bear market. And I'll also be sharing with you perspective from a number of XRP chart analysts, including one guy who argues, the last time we were similarly situated in the way that XRP is positioned right now, from this point in the market cycle, it did a 130x. So, this is why I keep saying, asking for double-digit price action for XRP, although I admit I don't know if that's going to happen this cycle, that is not remotely crazy. Even the guys that are calling for $20 to $30 XRP, we'll see if it happens. I don't know. But I don't think that's remotely unreasonable to be speculated about. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it's 1:57 a.m. Central Time, which is my time zone, so it's now Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. XRP is $2.43. Bitcoin just over $108,000, and I'm still tracking what's happening in traditional finance, specifically equities, even though, ho-hum, I'm not particularly interested in I'm not that interested in what happens in the stock market by itself. The only reason that I track what's happening in the stock market on a daily basis is because I understand that can be a signal as to what's going to happen in crypto, because stocks are risk-on assets, just like cryptocurrencies are risk-on assets. So if the stock market's going to rampage to the upside, it's a pretty good bet that crypto is going to move in tandem, because directionally it does the same thing most of the time. And so there was this post from Ryan Dietrich. He is the chief market strategist at Carson Group. And this chart is a high VIX with stocks near all-time highs is bullish. And so here's what he wrote. VIX, which of course is the volatility index, says VIX nearly hit 29 on Friday, yet S&P 500 was near all-time highs. Previous times we saw anything like this kicked off huge melt-ups in the late 90s and 2020/2021. Yes, eventually we saw this signal mark the peak, but the first signal in previous clusters saw very strong future returns. And so the data that's on your screen, this chart, this is something rare that just flashed here. And yes, it absolutely could mean that huge upside is coming. And frankly, again, not just for stocks, but for crypto too. And the VIX, which is technically a measure of expected volatility, but effectively used as the market's fear index. So what he's saying here is it just shot up to nearly 29. Nearly 29. And that's, to be clear, that's on a scale of 0 to 100, with 0 meaning no fear and 100 being the highest level of fear that this metric can track. So again, the VIX just shot up to 29, while the S&P 500, and that is fear, by the way, that does indicate fear, just shot up to 29, while the S&P 500 is sitting just a few percent away from all-time highs. Think about that. That combo almost never happens. So the fear exists even though the market is performing incredibly well right now. And volatility typically increases as investors panic. That should be no surprise. When people make important financial decisions based on their feels, yeah, you're going to get some volatility. And that's why this metric is a reliable fear indicator, even though, as I stated, technically it's a measure of expected volatility. Now, historically, every time we've seen this setup, like in the late 90s or early 2020, as is indicated on your screen here, markets didn't crash right away. They didn't. They melted upward. Stocks ripped higher for long periods of time. And that caught so many people off guard. The data on your screen shows that in these moments, the S&P 500, it averaged over 12% gains in the next year. And it was higher more than 80% of the time. And, this is because, in moments like these, fear is already priced into the markets. And that's a key takeaway. Fear is already priced into the markets. These fearful market participants, they're hedged. They are. Because they're fearful. They're hedged. And prices, think about it. Despite the fact that they're hedged, prices are as high as they are in the stock market right now. Despite that, the prices are this high. So think about it. Once the fear unwinds, those hedges unwind too. And that's what causes markets to melt upward. When people finally realize the world isn't ending, FOMO replaces the fear. That's what happens. And that fuels the rally. That's why this chart is important. This environment, of course, it's exactly what we want as XRP holders, just to be clear. When traditional markets go risk on, liquidity floods into everything. That's why altcoins fly. That's why this matters for XRP. If we're heading into another risk on melt up phase, history suggests crypto will be the biggest beneficiary. And think back to 2020 and 2021. The VIX was high early, and of course the market was volatile, but once the fear burned off, we got the biggest bull run in history. If that pattern repeats, this spike in volatility, near record highs, it might actually be the start of the next leg higher, not the end. That's certainly how I see it. I mean, look at this. Look at these indicators here. Look at last cycle. When the VIX hit that high, look, these are the signal dates. So when it first hit here earlier in 2020, look at how much time passed. When it first hit, though, was that the end of the world? No. Was the market fearful? Yes, I was making videos at that time. Go back and listen to them. Absolutely, the market was in fear. But what ultimately happened? Moved higher, both the stock market and crypto. And yes, eventually, one of these did mark the top, but what I'm telling you is that just because you see the first trigger of one of these, historically, it's actually good. Because people are getting fearful too soon. That's what it's telling you. And then he's got it marked back here too. Also happened in the late 90s. Same story. That's the same exact damn thing. And here's a post from Credible Crypto. And this is just from Monday afternoon. He says, just as confident as ever that our cycle top is not in yet. My original target set in 2018 of $100,000 plus for Bitcoins for this cycle has been met. But based on developing price action, I can now say I'm very confident we will see $150,000 plus before this cycle is over. And folks, I was there, of course, when he was posting such things. And that just sounded to some like Fantasyland nonsense stuff. I never thought that. I always believed that Bitcoin, even when it was just a little over $3,000, I always believed that it could be over $100,000. It could be over $1 million one day. But I also have always believed that XRP would hit a new all-time high. And I mean, it would be crazy to me to think of XRP at any point in history never getting into double digits, never getting into 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, maybe closer to 100. It's never going to happen. And to be clear, I don't think we're going to see like $50 or $100 this market cycle. I think there's about a 0% chance. But, the idea of XRP being worth 3 digits at some unknown point in the future, look, if it keeps getting adopted like this, that ain't crazy at all. People look back at XRP, $2.43, whatever it is right now. People look back at this and talk to you, like, wait, you got to buy XRP at $2 to $3? Like, they will be so jealous of you. If this goes where we think it's going, yeah. And then Credible Crypto says, in addition, just like I said in 2018, I don't think we will see $300,000 plus this cycle for Bitcoin, which means I'm very confident we top somewhere above $150,000 plus, but below $300,000 this cycle. 200,000 is possible for Bitcoin, but not a given in my opinion. We'll make a more detailed post shortly for additional context. And so I would just say this, if he's right and Bitcoin does get above like $200,000, how could XRP not at least get close to 20 bucks? Wouldn't that be weird if it doesn't? If it doesn't get at least close to 20 bucks? If you're talking about Bitcoin that high? And the reason I say that is, once there's that much people in profit for Bitcoin, the profit's going to get pulled and it's going to get cycled through the rest of the space. How could a huge chunk of that not end up rolling ultimately into XRP? That's the way I look at it. Here's another post from Credible Crypto. He says, after referencing additional reasons why, he says, Bitcoin's going above $150,000 a cycle. He says, a side note, there is no way in this world that Bitcoin goes parabolic like what we see below, so $150,000 plus, without there being the biggest alt season we have ever seen shortly after. Now that is spot on. If Bitcoin really does go that high, that's what I'm saying. That's why the opportunity for real life-changing wealth is in altcoins and specifically XRP. That's my personal opinion. I firmly believe that. Because there's way less money in them. It doesn't take as much money flowing in to get a multiplier effect, and you're going to get this tsunami of liquidity flowing directly into it as people take profit from Bitcoin, and as the mania hits its stride, there will be people throwing money directly into Bitcoin, or to XRP rather, on its own. It's going to be a whole bunch of things. Anyway, he says, a parabolic move like this on Bitcoin is not driven by logic, reason, or rationality. It is driven by speculation, greed, and euphoria. Which is exactly what will drive a rotation into altcoins during and after the Bitcoin top. It's not supposed to make sense. It's not supposed to be logical. It's merely a natural second-order effect of the greed and irrationality that we will see at the Bitcoin bubble top. Everyone gets a little golf clap for Credible Crypto. Spot on, absolutely. Firmly believe that to be the case. It's coming, folks. Here's a post from Crypto Michael. This is one of the guys that accurately called XRP breaking out this market cycle. He said, Bitcoin held weekly support. The bull market isn't over. Higher. And this is what I keep seeing from the analysts that I follow, and they've got good hit rates. He posted this Monday morning. Here's a post from chart analyst Blunts. Just the other day, he said he was noting that Ethereum not over for Ethereum. He said, nice higher low printed on Ethereum over the weekend. The doomers are a leg too early, in my opinion. So he thinks you're going to have at least one more major burst to the upside for Ethereum. And then he shared this post and said, same deal with Bitcoin. One more all-time high, then top. The current doomers are too early. Yeah, so if the people who are doomers right now keep screaming the same message, eventually they'll be right, but not before we rip to the upside first. That's my stance. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache. He says, Bitcoin was declared dead in 2022. Yes, FTX era, I remember that. He says, since then, it has risen by more than 700%. Now altcoins are being declared dead. People's sentiment actually tells you where we are right now. All it takes is one piece of good news to ignite the fire, and it will happen, in my opinion. And that is also true. I've seen this firsthand many, many times. Everybody's only doom and gloom until something flips, and then everybody just like, again, snap of a finger. Okay, now I'm happy again. You're like, these are like, I'm like, you're an NPC, bro. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, you are a robot. Okay. The crowd is just the retail crowd is just consistently wrong. We are not done here. Here's a post from chart analyst Merlin the Trader, popular guy here, nearly 400,000 followers on X. And you've got others priced against Bitcoin here. Others, of course, is the top 125 coins by market cap, excluding the top 10. So it's a good picture of altcoins. And in this case, it's altcoins priced against Bitcoin. So it's denominated in Bitcoin. That's what's shown on your screen here. And then you got the MACD for that chart on the bottom here. And he says, altcoins are flashing a cycle level bottom. A third MACD cross in 8 years. Each one marked the start of an altcoin super cycle. This is how generational trades begin. Before the noise. Before the hype. Yes, that is obviously true. And MACD, this indicator down here, that's a momentum indicator, my friends. So when he's saying it's flipping right here, well, look at what happened last cycle. As soon as it flipped, what happened? Ripped to the upside. And then the cycle before that, 2017, what happened when it flipped? rip to the upside. Again, it's a momentum indicator. That's why I see these green bars. And then during bear times, they're flipped, they're into red. And then back into green for the bull times, and back into red for the bear times. And what's happening right now? He's saying it's flipping green. So, I mean, if this is the moment, it just means it's going to be soon, perhaps. It doesn't mean it happens all at once. It doesn't mean it has to be today, tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever, so on and so forth. But it does mean that this thing is lining up in a way that makes historical sense. I just don't know how you couldn't be optimistic here. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Sentiment. They posted this in the evening on Monday. Just 10 days after XRP dropped below $1.90, and 3 days after retracing to $2.20, XRP has crossed above $2.50. Data shows clear signs of the crowd selling at a loss and conveying FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Prices typically move opposite to retail's expectations. And folks, that's always the case. Not literally always the case, but you get the cut of my jib. That's why I was saying a couple of minutes ago, retail's just consistently wrong. Whatever the masses think is going to happen, they're wrong. That's another reason to not believe that we're at the top of the market cycle. There is no euphoria here. There's never been a peak for a crypto market cycle when the market's not euphoric. It's never happened. What this time is different? Okay, well, famous last words, my friends. Here's a post from Chart Nerd. XRP is broken and currently sits above its prior 7-year resistance. And he's talking about 2017 through 2024. And then he says, the last time XRP broke and sat above a 4-year resistance, it rallied 130x. That's right, folks. 130-fold increase last time that happened, and that would be from 2013 through 2017. That's the range that he's talking about right here. So he says, when I'm targeting a 12x to $27, is the target too high? No, and look, I don't know if his target's right or wrong. I don't make price predictions myself. I just admit I don't know where price is going to go. I just have conviction that, broadly speaking, it's going to go higher as time passes, or else I wouldn't be holding XRP, so duh. But I don't think $27 is crazy. That ain't crazy talk. You're within reality here. 130x would have sounded crazy before, and it happened. It freaking happened. And so it is true that with each passing cycle, you should see a lower multiplier effect because it's harder to get, money. It's harder to get any investment to double, triple, quadruple in value, so on and so forth. The more money's already in it. I mean, just imagine if 100% of humans already held XRP. Imagine the Herculean effort that would be necessary to get the price to move up like 10%. You know what I mean? Once there's tons of money already into a thing, it's harder. But there's not that much money in XRP right now in the scheme of things, which is why there's opportunity here. Eventually, let enough time pass. Yes, XRP will be understood by pretty much everybody on the planet to be an early winner or just a winner of the crypto space. I'm arguing now it's an early winner of the crypto space. I get it. You guys get it. Most people don't. Most people have never even heard of XRP. But that's why there's opportunity here. If everybody already knew this, then we wouldn't be having these excited conversations because it would be as boring as investing in precious metals, frankly. And I understand gold's been going on a bit of a run. That's a very rare thing, though. Some would argue decades in the making, but this is where the real opportunities for life-changing wealth. And so, no, it's not crazy to talk about these double-digit price action figures. It just isn't. There's nothing crazy about that whatsoever. I really do believe that the best is yet ahead. Here's a post from Ether Nacional. He says, XRP is progressing on the Wyckoff method. The structure is still progressing in line with the Wyckoff accumulation phase. You can see he's got the schematic on the right, and then he's got price action where we are now, along with basically a fractal overlay of like what that looks like for that particular chart formation to play out. So he says the structure is still progressing in line with Wyckoff accumulation phase. The similarity to the 2017 formation is striking, but this time the market is more mature. Although it's still early, the picture resembles the calm before a strong breakout. The expectation is optimistic, but this time it's not just hope. The technical structure also creates similar expectations. So yet another analyst who's like, best is yet ahead. And historically, this is normal. And this is how this particular analyst sees this playing out. I understand why all of these analysts are very optimistic. It just, none of this looks like, or feels like what a top feel has feel like at any point in history in crypto. This time is different if this is the top. I don't think that's probable. Here's a post from chart analyst Greg Crypto. XRP flipping resistance update. As expected, XRP battling the supply zone is proving to be a tough battlefield for the bulls, but the good news, we're in the process of flipping it into support. The next key level to watch is around $2.55, which could soon become a strong support zone if this flip completes successfully. Yeah, so as far as talk about hitting a key level, if you look at XRP here, so as I record now, it's $2.42. We had a 24-hour high of $2.54. So yeah, there does seem to have been some resistance there, but nothing here is the end of the world. The best is clearly yet ahead. I'm very optimistic. Even if you have a short-term pullback, which some analysts I follow thought is possible, not the end of the world. We're just not done here. It doesn't make sense for so many reasons to think that the cycle's over here, especially with global liquidity being where it is. We never even saw the business cycle peak, which would be, I mean, if that's not an indicator of the cycle, that'd be the first time in history. Come on. We're going to find out together. I'm as eager as the rest of you to see because it's so fun and exciting, but I really do not feel fear here. It just doesn't make sense. And part of the reason that I'm at peace with this, there's really no trick to it. It's because I have genuine conviction. That is why I'm at peace with this. I believe that even if we went to a bear market now and XRP cratered with everything else, let a few years pass, the market's going to come back, it'll be rejuvenated, and XRP is going to continue to be a beneficiary of that environment, and it'll just run higher, and then we melt faces. So I can't control when the thing runs, obviously, but I'm going to have exposure when it does. So even if I have to wait, it's not going to ruin my life. You can say it's a little disappointing, but that's about the most I'd feel about it. I don't care. It's not going to change anything that I do. I'm not going to be fearful, though. I'll tell you that. I'll never feel fear about that. XRP's winning. Okay? It has to be in the right environment, and that's when stuff runs. Same type of concept is true for stocks. You got to be in the right environment. But either you have exposure or you don't. So if we entered a bear market and I had to just wait a few years, so be it. That is what I'll do, and life will go on. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see a bear market before this thing melts to the upside. So you and I are going to find out together. We're on this journey, my friend. I think we're close. I really do. Never been closer, my friends. That's how time works. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.